In the name of God, who creates, redeems, and sustains us. Amen. A couple of years ago, I attended a program that the diocese was very excited about, and a lot of individual parishes were invited to participate in. It was called Liberating Ourselves from Racism. I mention it because it came back to me as I looked at the lections for this week. In that program, as I looked at my own past and the environment I grew up in the interactions I have witnessed between people of different skin colors, I thought long and hard about the history of this continent and the ideals and realities of the nation that I live in. We live in an imperfect land in an imperfect world. And we've been called by God not to accept the status quo, but to change it. And if there's anything the last 6 or 7 years have taught us, it's that change is critical if we are going to survive. That change, as all real change does, begins with us. And we have the illustrations of change beginning with individuals in the reading for today, the second Sunday in Lent. The call of Abraham is a remarkable story. He who was from Ur of the Chaldeans, well to the east of what we now call the Holy Land, in present-day Iran, is well along in life and quite well settled when God speaks to him. Walk before me, God says. Be blameless, and I will make a covenant with you. He will make of Abraham a great nation, and Abraham will be the ancestor of many. Furthermore, he will inherit a land that will be shown to him by God. Now there is something that's hinted at, but will become clear as we journal through the Abraham saga. What we got today was a very early snippet at the beginning of the saga of Abraham. As you journey through the Abraham saga, you see one very important thing. Abraham has to do something besides just get up and leave, which is one of the things he has to do. The other thing he has to do is he has to trust in God. That, I think, is something that's easier said than done. Not just for him, but I think for all of us. Putting our trust in something tends to run contrary to this culture. Although Abraham goes where God sends him, he often tries to fulfill God's promise on his own because things aren't quite happening fast enough for him. And he thinks, well, maybe I'm supposed to force the issue at this point. And every time he does force the issue, it doesn't work out. It's a hard thing to trust, even to trust God. It was true of Abraham, and it was especially true of people in the culture of contemporary America. People are called foolish or unwise if they go on trust. It's considered a sign among many of stupidity. And yet trust is the foundation of our relationship with God. It's ultimately the foundation of how we get along with each other. Abraham trusts enough to pack up and leave his family of origin and set out to Canaan, to travel the land that will one day belong to his descendants, accompanied by Sarah and his nephew Lot. As Paul says in the letter to the Romans, Abraham's faith was reckoned to him as righteousness. And that's a good thing. Because while Abraham trusted in God, sort of, he often tried to force the issue. Whether by passing his very attractive wife off as his sister to very powerful men, or having a son with his wife's maid to try to get his line of descendants going. It wasn't until the binding of Isaac, when God saw that he would sacrifice Isaac, that Abraham's trust in God was finally complete. It's a hard thing to trust. Which is why I began talking about that anti-racism program that I took. It involved trusting others while we dive into the deepest and innermost thoughts and feelings of our own, while seeking to understand ourselves in order to better understand others. Human beings are all one species, regardless of skin color or the part of the world that we hail from. Yet the history of humankind is one of violence and hatred toward others, and using others to benefit ourselves at their expense. We cannot afford to live like this any longer. We never could. But to further God's kingdom and make the earth a place truly fit for all of us, we have to put aside hate. We have to put aside ignorance. And we have to put aside the desire to dominate others. And to do so, we need to trust each other as much as we need to trust God. Next week, a new era is going to begin here at Emmanuel. With all of it in front of you, it's a time of excitement. You should be excited. Your new rector comes to you with excitement too. I had lunch with him last week, and he is very excited. As you sort out the inevitable kinks, which as you grow used to each other and set goals together, remember that God calls us to trust. Trust one another and trust Brett. Above all, trust in God. God has brought Brett to you at this time and this place to begin a new era in the life of Emmanuel Church and in Wakefield at large. So what I say to you is, seize the moment, live into your call, and do not be afraid to trust.